I met Professor Barbra Naidu for the first time in '95 when I joined the department, but I'd heard of her much before that. When I was in college, I had a school friend who studied in Joseph's, and one day he suddenly started talking about this English teacher of his who had done something very interesting in class and then had also taken them to a graveyard to experience the atmosphere in a poem that they were studying that year and stuff like that. I was in Christ College where English classes were 30 minutes of conversation and 30 minutes of notes. So this seemed wildly exciting at the time. A little later, when I went to the university, I heard of her again from Dr. Vanamala Vishwanath, my ELT teacher, who was talking about classroom management. She mentioned how she'd learned many interesting things about classroom management, small things you can do to make sure that your lungs and your tonsils are not destroyed by having to stand in front of a class. From Barbara, she was talking about a small community that they were part of called the ELTC, or the English Language Teaching Community. But in some sense, I'd met her many times through these conversations. And so I was a little in awe of her when I met her the first time. But she sort of put me very quickly at my ease when I came to the department. She had a very ready smile and a very, friendly, warm way of speaking. I remember this was in February '95. When I came in, she smiled and she said, "You must be Arul." And then she said, "We finished all the work that there was." So, and then she smiled, right? And I smiled too. That was our first conversation. Then I had the privilege of working with her quite closely over the next 2 or 3 years. And I remember that it was a very interesting time for me. I was learning a bunch of things on the new job. And a lot of the things that got sorted in class in terms of practice, teaching, and all of that happened around in informal conversations, sitting around a lunchtime table. That was her style, using the small scale and the informal to generate good ideas and good conversation. She ran this thing called the Joseph's AIDS Awareness Movement. She was the one who conceptualized it. And while I didn't quite agree with the direction it took, she did a very good job in terms of training young students to be communicators. Right? She believed in the value of peer communication. She did a very good job. It was a very interesting and unique experiment in spreading AIDS awareness at that time. So she brought the same spirit of focusing on the details and using an awareness of small details to enhance student experience. And one of the things that she put a lot of time and energy into was in training young science and arts teachers in classroom management, but also in enlisting them to sit in conversation with smaller groups of students through what was then known as personality development and human resource development. All big names, but they were essentially nice, relaxed conversations, very non-judgmental conversations, and they did a lot to contribute to Joseph's becoming a very home-like and welcoming place for students from across the country through the '90s and the early 2000s. So a lot of the basic ethic of the department comes from the years that she provided leadership to the department from '96. She took over as HOD in '96 until she took voluntary retirement in 2004. She gave us many of the directions that we are now pursuing. So when we wanted to do something in tribute to her, the most sensible thing seemed to be something that would be focused on student experiences. And the personal essay thus suggested itself as a very natural candidate for a way of remembering a very unique person.